So the other night I pulled out Dance Macabre. I hadn't listened to it in a little bit. It didn't, I didn't engage with it the same way I engaged with Future Past, where it just went on into rotation for months at a time. And I think it's just because of the nature of it. I mean, it's a new studio album, but it's not a new studio album. But and I knew this would kind of happen. I like it a lot more now than I did at the time. And I liked it. You know, I reviewed it. I think I gave it a good review. I know I did. Fuck, like, I don't know. And, but at that time, like, the way I listen to bands is like, I'll listen to 2 or 3 groups at a time. And this might go on for a couple months. And then someone gets rotated in and someone gets rotated out. Usually it's, you know, all my favorites, you know. But occasionally, like, a new one will slip in. But, so they weren't on my schedule when that came out. So I listened to it a bunch of times and just kind of put it away. And now, what it was 5 months on from it, almost. I pulled it out, and that's a real good one. Really enjoy it. Everything they did on it, all the experiments, came out pretty well. The Billie Eilish song kind of is in one ear and out the other for me because I have no attachment to the original. It's okay, but you know, Paint It Black, however, and Psycho Killer, those came out really well. One thing about Duran, and they're like this with all their music, they don't half-ass anything. If they're gonna do something, they really put the work in. And while you can tell, I mean, the album doesn't sound labored over, but it sounds like a lot of work went into it as far as detail. It's just such a strange beast, you know, because it's, you know, I can't think of another album like it that any band has ever done, in a sense where they do cover songs, new songs, and re-record older stuff. And the re-recorded older stuff isn't just to re-record them. Like a lot of I don't like re-records usually. Usually they're done because the band wants, they want the licensing for it so that they can, you know, get the publishing money if they, you know, put it in other media. A lot of times when you hear a band's song in an advertisement or a movie, they don't really sometimes don't get any money. It goes to a publishing company. So a lot of bands will redo some of their biggest songs. The songs they redid here were far from their biggest ones. They're fan favorites. Night Boat, while I, of course, prefer the original, does a really great job of kind of inviting you into that sort of Halloween world that they've set up on that album. It's the most goth of Duran Duran albums for sure. And listening through it, it's almost like it's very cinematic. I listen to albums straight through, usually. And that's why Andy Taylor's Man's a Wolf to Man, the title cut, was my most listened to song, according to Spotify, in 2023. Because I'd play that album constantly. But sometimes you don't get to the end of it. So that track got the most plays because I threw that album on. That one would always get played. That's a great album too. But yeah, I appreciate this one a lot more now with a little bit of distance. I like the fact that they got in, of course, Andy and Warren to come in and do some stuff. It was so weird though, because like when it was first announced, and I pay attention to this kind of stuff because it happens in the world with everything. I look into a lot of events in which sometimes the narrative changes dramatically throughout the life of the event, and that kind of happened here too. When I first started hearing about it, it wasn't long after the Andy thing happened at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where they announced that he was on his way out, or they thought he was on his way out at the time. Shortly after that is when you got the announcement that they were doing something with him. They were doing an album with him. In my, thinking, which a lot of other fans probably felt the same way, they were doing this because he didn't have a lot of time left. And they wanted to record one more album with them, which I thought was great. And the word at the time was that it was going to be some new tracks with him and some covers. I was thinking maybe they would do stuff that they jointly enjoyed over the years. It's a lot easier to do that than to work up original songs. Sometimes recording covers can take a little bit more time depending on what you're doing, how you're doing it. But in this case, those guys are pros. They could probably crank out cover tunes pretty easy. So my whole thought about what this was, it was like an Andy album, farewell Andy, work with him one more time, whatever. And then somewhere around in the springtime, it started to change. Maybe going into early summer, the narrative on it started to change, where now Warren was there too, and they were saying Andy will appear on a few tracks. That was completely different from what they first started when they first announced it. They said they were making an album with Andy Taylor, making an album with him. It went from making an album to appearing on a few tracks. And then the Warren Cucurella thing, so it's like, I don't know what happened. I think maybe, I don't know. I think maybe they found out he wasn't dying or something in between that time. And they probably said, oh, well, I don't know. No one knows what happened. All I know is that the narrative changed. And then it became like a celebration album. And then later in the year, summertime, it became a Halloween album. So it's kind of weird. I don't think they were planning to make anything. So, whatever happened with the idea with the Andy thing, he's now only on a couple tracks. And his impact is lessened by the fact that, it's everybody's on it. We got Warren back, we got, help me, Chic. Now Roger's back. So something happened there. I don't know what. I know they're helping him out with medical bills, and I think they were the ones that, and I hate talking about personal stuff, that's the thing I care least about when it comes to bands I think they're the ones that pushed him in the direction of the treatment he got that ultimately saved his life, or that is currently saving his life, the nuclear cancer treatment. These certain people in society, if they are deemed more important than the riffraff, they have things that are available to them that most people don't have, that aren't available to most people. So I don't know if that's the case here, but that happened. It's good. I'm glad he's alive, right? I'm glad it's worked out okay for him, or so far. Yeah, it's really weird how that happened. So the album is for the sort of kind of changing narrative on it, actually turned out really well. All the tracks, man, they're all great. They're done really well. Confessions in the Afterlife is that's such a great song. That is like the ballad song. People always say wow, ever since they've had Ordinary World, every album they have to have one of these things now. I would say it goes back to Rio. Save a Prayer. And then on Seven the Ragged Tiger, you had Seven Stranger. On Notorious, what was a ballad on that? I was going to say My Antarctica, but that's actually on Liberty. I forget what the ballad was on Notorious. But then Even So Red the Rose, you had The Promise. Then you had on Big Thing, you had Palomino, My Antarctica on Liberty. Then you had Ordinary World. And then for the thank you album, I kind of always felt like Beautiful Day, a Perfect Day, Beautiful Day. Perfect Day was the song, was a ballad there. Who Do You Think You Are? Medazzaland. There was a couple on Pop Trash, The Sun Doesn't Shine Forever and Someone Else Not Me, could both fit that mold. On Astronaut, What's Gonna Happen Tomorrow. On the Justin Timberlake album, you had Falling Down, Red Carpet Massacre. Then from the next album, you had the song that sounded the most to me like Save a Prayer, and that was Leave a Light On, and from the All You Need Is Now album. Paper Gods had What Are the Chances. Future Past had the title track, Future Past, and now we have Confessions in the Afterlife here from Dance Macabre. I think I got all of them. It's killing me that what ballad was on Notorious, though. I don't know. I'll think of it as soon as I turn this off. But yeah, Black Moonlight is such a great song. Like that would have made a great song no matter what album it appeared on. And that has Andy and Niall on it. So yeah, I pulled it out and come around to liking it more. Just kind of want to talk about it because I wasn't surprised at how good it was, but I was like happy how much I was enjoying it. Because at the time I liked it, but it was like, whatever, it's a stopgap kind of thing. But no, it got a pop for me the other night. I was just wondering how everybody else feels about it now, 5 months on. Or is it 4 months on? Yeah, that was stupid that they released it like, what, 3 days before Halloween? Like, if they released it even a month before, you could have used it at Halloween parties. It would have gotten a lot more of a bump from people because it came out, right? Halloween happened, and then I never heard anything about it again. You know, they released that video for Black Moonlight, came after Halloween, but it's like no one really talks about it. That's the problem with theme albums. Like, it's like a Christmas album, you know? No one talks about it after Christmas. So it just kind of died. It didn't have any legs at all. So I think theming it as a Halloween album wasn't maybe the best thing that they could have done. And if they were going to do that, right, release it fucking at least a month out so you can market it as like a Halloween album. You know, people would have had more interest in it. As it is, you know, by the time it came out, people didn't have time to barely buy it before Halloween was here and gone. Whatever. I'm glad it exists, though. I'm glad it's a thing, and I enjoy it a lot more, and probably be listening to it a lot more in the future. And here's looking forward to the next one, which hopefully they're going to be working on soon. Until then, until next time, or whatever time we find ourselves together again, don't blame the teacher, blame the school.